I've been working with Chris Butler's The Sun Tarot, and I've been getting some astonishingly profound readings with it so far. Yesterday, while I was uploading my last video, I decided to perform a daily draw. It was for today, even though it was last night. It was really late at night when I finally crashed, and I felt really, as I was shuffling, I felt really drawn to one of the cards, and I turned it over, and I drew the Five of Swords. Now that turned out to be astonishingly profound because I was reacquainted, in a sense, with an old nemesis of mine whom I first encountered about a dozen years ago. Well, before I tell you what happened, I need to tell you some backstory about my interactions with this person. And it's an extremely personal story. Um, I was visiting with a former friend of mine in Des Moines, downtown Des Moines, and while she was working, I decided to use the computer lab in the apartment that she was renting. So I got on gay.com, which back then had a pretty decent chat room. It doesn't anymore. Actually, the website pretty much sucks now. But I was chatting with a guy who was local in Des Moines, and we decided to go meet up. So me not being very familiar with the area, I um, I recommended that we meet up at the only place that I confidently knew how to get to from her apartment building, which was Java Joe's. So I arrived there expecting to wait maybe 20 or 30 minutes for him to arrive, and I ordered my signature drink, which is a caramel ole. No sooner had I received it than he walked through the door, so it was still too hot to drink. So I go with him, we get into his car, and we fool around for a little bit. Then he recommends that we go for a drive somewhere, and he takes me to this adult bookstore. Um, we go in, pay a little fee, and go back to the back rooms where we fool around some more. A few minutes later, he recommends that we go back to a corner booth for more privacy, and so I go back there, and while he excuses himself to go to the bathroom, I think, okay, sure, whatever, I will wait. So I sit back there and wait, watching the videos. 10 minutes go by, then 15 minutes go by, and I have to have been there for what seems like 20 minutes at least. Um, so finally, I go sort of looking around the other booths, thinking that maybe he might have found someone else to play with, and I don't see him. So I then go back to the clerk of the store, who's really sweet, really kind, and I ask him where the bathroom is. So it's literally on the opposite side of the store from where I was. And so I walk back there, and it's dark. There's clearly no one in there, so I began to get a little agitated and scared because I was in an area of Des Moines where I'd never been before, and when he drove us there, he was sidewinding, really, taking all these little back alleys and turns and corners. It was very disorienting. And so I was extremely concerned at this point. So I went back up to the clerk, and I asked him if he'd seen the gentleman that I had come in with, and he said yes. And he proceeded to explain that he basically flew out the building, just running as fast as he could, taking my coffee with him, of course, which was still in his car. Which, that's a whole other story because you never come between me and my coffee. I'll cut a bitch. But I was really, really sort of um, calmly flipping out at this point. And thankfully, I honestly wasn't too far from where I was. The clerk was really, really kind and explained precisely how to get back to where I was. So I was able to find my way home. But that is not where the story ends. Over the preceding few years, almost like clockwork, I would receive a message from this guy online. And I knew it's him. He had his face in his profile. And he tried to pick me up time and time again, completely oblivious to who I was and his last interaction with me. So, at first, I just flat out ignored him. But the more I did so, the angrier and angrier I became because he scared me. I I thought that I had just been abandoned someplace without any means of transportation and certainly no money to get to someplace that I was comfortable being. Um, of course, it also taught me a lesson, not to trust people as deeply as I normally do, because they certainly don't have your best interests at heart, which is a shame because we're all in this together. We're gay men are a brotherhood. We should really try and be better to each other than what we are. I certainly try to live that. Um, but as I said, I began to get more and more angry until I couldn't take it anymore, and I just unleashed the beast onto him. I wrote him back. It was a very curt letter. I used some very vulgar language. I'm not particularly proud of. And I asked him what the hell he was thinking, essentially. I asked him why he had no idea who I was, and he didn't really just address those issues, but he responded back, which surprised me because I didn't think he would. But he told me that I was essentially forgettable and that I must have been fugly and a lousy lay, which it didn't even get nearly that far. Just some kissing is all. And believe me, I could do a lot better than him, but I didn't want to turn him down on the spot. I'm too nice. But yeah, it doesn't even end there because for the next few years, about once or twice a year, he would find me on some new website and try and make a pass at me as if he had absolutely no idea who I am and what our first interaction was like, how negative it was. So, fast forward to this morning, I wake up, I get online, and I decided to check my Bear 411 profile to see if any friends of mine there had left any messages because I often chat there with people that I meet, and lo and behold, he had written or he had signed my guest book with the message of "You're hot" on it, which really, really shocked me considering his very negative outburst towards me. Um, so I again found myself in the position of having to remind him of who I was and what our last interaction had been. I mean, at the very least, I still kind of half-heartedly demand restitution for that coffee that I lost. You know, I mean, I'm broke. I was broke at the time, and it would just be nice to have, you know, that paid back just a little bit. But I know that that will never happen, of course. Um, and I am surprised that he hasn't written me back yet. I half-heartedly don't expect that he will, but one never knows. But um, what I found so profound about this card is it perfectly encompasses the situation involved with this scenario. It involves an aggressor and someone who is vanquished or feeling defeated. Um, it encompasses that part of the gay community that is not kind to our own, that tries to really belittle us, belittle each other, and the effects that it will have on us, which are often not positive and really need to be taken into account. That, well, it's just something that we as a culture need to put aside. That, you know, we really are all in this together, and that we are only as strong as our weakest link. That, uh, you know, you should try and do well by your brothers. You should try and support them and be good to them as best you can. You know, even though there are some assholes out there, and the person I spoke of was one of them. Um, God, I just can't believe how profound this is. You know, it absolutely describes the person I was speaking with and who I had another encounter with just this morning after years of radio silence, of not even seeing him or even hearing from him, which was nice. I will admit, it was nice not to think about the negative impact he had on my life back then in my early 20s. Um, but you know, that's all day, and I just felt like ranting a little bit. Thank you.